Hi guys, Alicia from Morning Hawk Creations. Today's going to be the first episode working on building your personal gold mine of photographic reference material. Now, why do I personally think that you should go out and do your own photography versus working off somebody else's? First off, it's going to give you more control of your subject. It's going to teach you the importance of composition, lighting, using your action lines, giving you a sense of perspective, and more control over color. And working from your own original material rather than someone else's, it's going to give you a larger variety of the reference material that you have. In this tutorial, we're going to go over controlled lighting versus ambient lighting. We're going to talk about the temperature of lighting, and we're going to end with some quick tips and experiments that you can do with lighting for still life photography. Stick around. Okay, so we're in the dining room. Now I have a few ambient sources of light right now. The kitchen light is on, the overhead light here is on, and I have three other lights kind of pointing in, which is why it's not as awkward as the tutorial I did where I was talking about shows and unpacking a suitcase. Now over here is the bouquet of roses that I have, and this is my rig for doing, like, if I want to do still life shots, or if I need to have very directed lighting. Now, already you can see that because I chose a black background, that the roses are they're really popping right then and there. So the black background is really going to help to bring the color out. And I am shooting with my Canon. It's same Canon I've been shooting with for a while. It is not a DSLR. It's the PowerShot SX40HS. So now with just the ambient light, I'm going to put it in aperture priority. And I do have the hood on it, and the reason that I have the hood on it is because if I change my lighting, it reduces the glare on the lens. So if you ever wonder what this hood does, it actually cuts the glare down. So if I have like light coming in at maybe like a 45-degree angle or right behind it, that I'm not getting that extra glare. So and then we'll just get, I don't like that cluster here. Now, one of the things I kind of want to show you is that there is a little graph there that shows you the lighting balance. And that's so you can maximize the amount of pop. You don't have something that's too dark or too light. And ideally, you kind of want it to look like a bell curve in order to have a properly balanced light in your picture. When I'm shooting with these roses on this black background, I get it really heavy off to the left, which tells me that it's really very dark. But I can always fix that if I want to. I can adjust the lighting also if I really want to, but I'm going for something that's going to have a lot of pop and contrast in it. So that's really going to bring my color out. So that picture right there, I'll just superimpose it right on the screen so you can see it. It's got a really good amount of light and color. I think the color looks a little saturated, but it's nice and sharp and in focus. So Oh, and the other thing that annoys professional photographers is that I I've heard it referred to as chimping. And that's when you're not necessarily up here shooting out of the viewfinder. And as you can see, I have glasses, so I can't necessarily put the viewfinder right to my eye. And if I do, I take pictures that are out of focus. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. Now, when I was originally learning how to do photography, yes, I was really good at doing this. And I've gotten out of that habit. And the reason is that I can have a shot lined up on my monitor and pan in and out and be able to shoot the whole thing. And then as I'm panning in and out, because I'm already in this motion, I can quick glance up in less time than it takes for me to adjust my camera and figure out the next shot. So if I have, and I've used that like tremendously. I've used it in horse shows when I'm shooting a speed and action. I've used it at zoos when I'm shooting animals that are in an enclosure, going all over. Last one I used that on was a snow leopard that was going up in the back of the enclosure, and so I was looking at getting shots of it leaping. So I was trying to figure out as I was shooting what the next maneuver was going to be and if I had to move. Alright, so I've gotten quite a few shots of these roses. And I have to say that I think one of my very favorite ones and one of the ones that really got me to spend $15, $20 on a dozen roses is this one right here, where you can definitely see that really gorgeous pale yellow on the inside and the really dark tips on the inside, or outside. I said that backwards. You can see the pretty yellowness on the inside and the really deep reds on the outside. So I'm definitely going to be taking some time with this little baby and shooting some good shots of this. Okay, so now we've taken out the large grouping of roses and we're going with a single individual rose. We're keeping the black background and just focusing on shooting this one individual rose. I haven't changed the lighting yet. We still have overhead lighting from the lamp here, the lamp in the kitchen, and then the side lamps over here. One of the reasons that I like this in particular setup, where it's kind of an alcove, is that I can, once I start applying it, I can really control the light that's hitting it. So what's hitting me is the cool daylight lamps that are off to, well, effectively in front of me, that would color and cool this off, but they are not hitting this flower right now because it's blocked by this backdrop. So. So now we're going to start to kind of adjust our lighting here. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn off this overhead light. So already, because we're going away from these lights right here, which are all regular inside lights, they are not daylight lights, the vast majority of the lighting that's in the house right now from the kitchen and these lamps over here is all daylight lights. So the first thing that would have been apparent the minute I turned these off was that the screen got a very huge dump in blue color. And that blue color is going to affect the way that this rose now shows up. And the other thing I'm going to point out is, for all intents and purposes, that the camera is now registering it as something that now needs to be registered as a really long exposure, because there isn't enough light in there. There's no direct light on it, so it wants to have the exposure, the lens open, or the shutter open much longer. Alright, so now we're going to go with the first treatment. We're going from the lack of this overhead lamp, which just kind of gives you a general feel. It turns off a lot of the warm light that was in here. It gives us all daylight light, so it's a lot of cool light. It's a lower temperature. We shot that, and now I'm going to do this. In here is actually a daylight light, but it's going to be going up against a gold reflector, so it's going to reflect a warmer light. So we're going to go from the gold reflector, which will reflect the warm light, the silver reflector, which is going to reflect the cool light. I'll show you the difference here. So immediately, the thing that you notice is that the one with the silver reflector looks a lot brighter. It actually looks like I shot it on a slower speed so that it... Now we're going to try shooting the gold one again in case the lamp didn't actually warm up. So the one thing I can definitely say between the gold reflector and the silver reflector is how much the temperature of the lighting changes. So in the blue reflector there's more white that comes out, and the gold reflector actually just keeps that tone and then reinforces the existing tones of those that are in the rose. Now the thing that I'm noticing is that my camera keeps registering the light as not being enough light, and so it wants to put it on a longer exposure, which is causing really blurry shots. So we're going to need to change this up just a little bit. Okay, so this is the second time I'm trying to film this, and I apologize for the lighting, and I don't apologize for the lighting. I don't apologize for the lighting because if you think the lighting's bad now, it's going to get so much worse for that camera. So, and that's because we're going to be doing flowers, but we're going to be doing dramatically lit flowers, which means a lot of the ambient light that's in here right now is going to go away. So this is my photo rig that I normally shoot photography in, and the first thing that's going to go away is this light right here, because I want to use this as pin light. And there's a very small hole, so you can see it on the camera, it's right here. This is just basically black pastel paper, and I'm keeping it on there with masking tape. And I'm going to use it as what's called a pin light, which is a very small light. And it's going to be creating a rim light behind my subjects, which are going to be my roses. Now, I've already shot these roses earlier on in the week, before they had opened up, when they still were like little cute buds like this. But some of them have opened up more like this. And we're not really sure what these roses are called color-wise. They're very close to circus roses, so they are yellow in the middle. They go out to a orange, and they are, for some reason, this variety is tipped in red, and it's a really, really rich red. It's not just any old red. So we've got the black background because I want lots of pop and contrast. We've got two different kinds of vases. One is a really big 4-inch vase, and then we've got this smaller, narrow vase. And now we're going to adjust the lighting. Lighting, yes. We'll get rid of all this ambient, noisy lighting. Pink, pink. And now you're like, it's dark in here, and we may die. And so there is also this light. Sorry. And you gotta be like, oh my god, it's like a shop light. It is a shop light. It is a $5 shop light. Oh, the heart. And yes, if you look in here, you can actually see the toolbox and a basket of ornaments that's behind that. Now we're going to take another piece of black pastel paper, and we're going to tape it to the inside of this light. And the reason we're taping it to the inside away from me is because then it's going to put a shadow on the backdrop, so the backdrop is not going to be quite so bright because it doesn't actually really have a light on it. And the only problem is I got to really make sure that the light is not bleeding over there. So I realized that I had this taped up last time in two different spots. That'll work. That'll work. And then there's a third piece of paper, and this is in case I get any noise and any noise on the camera from some light hitting and bouncing off the lens. Okay, so I'm not shooting with anything in particularly really special. I'm using my Canon PowerShot SX40 HF, which is that high-end point and shoot. It's one step down from a DSLR. And so the first thing I'm noticing is I've got some noise on the lens, because this light here, this rim light here, is actually creating some of that. So I kind of want to see if I can get rid of the leaf that's in the background. And I do apologize, I'm using my tripod here, so the little bit of movement you guys are experiencing and the noise that you're getting is actually because That camera is sitting on the ferret cage, which is normally sitting right here, and I don't have a second tripod. One of the things that I really, really loved about these roses when I bought them that was really so striking is the fact that they had such a wide variety of color to them that they reminded me of a flame. Okay, so the other thing that I want to do is that I want to kind of show the contrast between the fiery kind of color and water. So to create the water droplets, we're going to take our rose over to the sink. So I'm going to be off camera for a minute. Okay, so I sprayed it down. You heard me spraying it down quite a bit. And so now I have this very interesting contrast of the fiery kind of colors that are naturally present on this rose, and then that added texture and the added light reflection of the water droplets. Now, don't be afraid when you're doing your photography to take extra pictures. Or change your angle. It's not like in this day and age you have to pay for film unless you truly, truly choose to. Now, with the shots like this, because there is such a limited amount of light, my camera is giving me that flashing error of stop shaking the camera. So what I'm going to do to eliminate that, because and that is the other reason why I'm using my tripod here, is I'm going to set it on the 2-second timer, set the focus, and then let it take the shot. And even with that one, where I wasn't even possibly touching it or vibrating it in any way, shape, or form, it was still giving me that warning message because it's so dialed into it, and it's actually trying to focus on the dollop of water that's actually in the middle of the rose, which is why I might be getting that, because it's so hard for the camera to distinguish what it's supposed to be focusing on. So I'm going to change my focus from that to another part of the rose so that perhaps a clearer shot. And it does, it looks a lot better. So now I'm just going to go in and get a couple extra shots. When you're spraying down your roses to get that watery, dewy look for these still shots, make sure you don't just go from the top, make sure you go from the side and get the outside of the flowers too, because your rim lighting, that pin lighting right there, that rim lighting is going to catch those water droplets, and it's going to add a richer accent and more texture to your roses. And my focus point here is actually right here between these two roses, so it's kind of a marriage between the two.